Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new season of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Man, I cannot believe it that this is the fourth season. You know, when I started doing this podcast 3 years ago, I never dreamt that I would be here, but it's honestly an honor and a privilege to keep doing this because I absolutely love what I do. I'm so excited for what the year 2023 holds for the podcast and for me as well, and also all the amazing people who I'm about to meet this year. I am so excited. Thank you as always to every single person who has listened to the show. A reminder that you can follow us on the following social media platforms. We are on Twitter and Instagram at The Root of the Sci Pod, Facebook and LinkedIn at The Root of the Science Podcast. We are also on TikTok at The Root of the Sci Pod, and we are on YouTube at The Root of the Science Podcast. So please make sure that you like and subscribe, and you also put your notifications on so that when a new podcast comes on, you're the first person to hear about it. Okay? All right, great. And it is always so amazing to be here. Please make sure that you support this podcast using the PayPal link that is at the end of the show notes. A reminder that if you know that there's somebody who I should talk to this year, make sure that you send me an email or you DM me, or if it's you yourself who you think I should chat to, please don't be shy. Send me an email. I'll really love to talk to new people this year. Now, let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Moloko Moshokoa. She is from South Africa, currently based there as well. She is a master's student in chemical technology. Her research aims to improve the bioproduction of a platform chemical called succinic acid. She tells us about this work and of course why it is so important. Moloko also shares some of her own personal journey on getting this MSc, you know, touching on the high and the low as always. And of course we get to understand the roots of her science and of course so much more. So tune in and let's go. Hi, Moloko. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anne.
It's such a pleasure to have you on today and for us to have this conversation. I'm really excited to get to know more about you and also, of course, the audience who's listening. So first things first, can you give us a brief intro? Who is Moloko? Where are you from? Where are you based? And just briefly, what do you do?
Okay, I'm Moloko Moshokoa. I'm originally from Limpopo. I'd say I'm from Moleji, but I'm also from Pahom. But I was raised in Moleji by my grandmom, basically in South Africa. So currently a master's student at the University of Pretoria in chemical technology. I did my undergrad at UJ. Did chemistry and biochem undergrad, and then honors I did in chemistry. So yeah, I went to work for like 2 years as a sales coordinator, but within the science field. And then I came back again. And the reason why was right after my honors, I knew that I was interested in doing like research work, but I wasn't sure which field to take in because the current project at that point, I wasn't interested in it. So I went back to work, and then finally I knew that I was interested in renewable energy, and then that's when I decided to come back. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, fantastic. All right, cool. You've touched on some really important parts, which you're going to get into more detail during the course of the interview. But I would love us to start off at the kind of like the beginning, or rather not even the beginning, rather getting to know you from being Moloko the MSc student or Moloko the scientist, I think it's really important for us to know, the human side of you. Not saying that you're not human as a scientist, but I mean, to know you away from the sciences. So apart from that, you mentioned that you're a mom and you're married, so I just wanted to know, and also you also told me that you love music and, it's one of the things that you also love to do. So as much as you're always dealing with, the chemicals and the chemistry, which we're going to get into, why are these two parts of your life so important to you, like in terms of you just being more than a scientist?
Okay, I'd start with being a wife, because before the kids, then I was the girlfriend.
Yes, of course.
So I think being a wife has taught me a lot of things. The first is to be gracious, because, we think that as human beings, we are good people until our faults are right into our faces, or the expectations are higher than what we can achieve. So I think me being a wife has taught me just to be gracious, not just for other people, but for myself too. Because being a perfectionist, I tend to be hard on myself. So it serves also as a reminder that I'm also human. I shouldn't be too hard on myself. And to accept love, apart from, as like I'd say, as an individual, you know how to love yourself. So, but then when another individual comes in, you learn how to accept love from another point of view, and you don't rush the love, because growth happens in different, steps. And also, I learned a lot about myself in a different phase. Like, you think you know yourself until something new comes and you learn something new about yourself. So I think I've learned, some aspects of me that I never knew that I had before. And then, there were the kids. Actually, we're a blended family. I've got an 11-year-old. That's from my husband. His name is Mogetwa. So I think, because the other one came after. So Mogetwa taught me to be a mom before I was actually a mom. So he's this curious little human being, the boy. And then there was the second one called Bohoni. Bohoni was born in my during Corona, actually.
Oh, she's a COVID baby.
Yes, I got a COVID baby. So I've got another boy. So I got two boys. So
nice.
Bukhon was born within my studies. And then difficult journey through. We'll talk about it, I think, as time goes.
Yeah.
So being a mom too, like, I think for me, no matter how tired I am during the day, when I come back, it's like a revived whole new person, because this little sparkling eyes are looking at me. It also brings its own challenges, being a first-time mom, and being a mom of two all within a short period of time. So it's apart from a different sense of happiness, it brings a part of like a responsibility, and also giving love to this innocent human beings and caring for them and teaching them all the things that I've been taught also. And also, I think as an individual, our parents did the best that they could, but then trying things differently. I think well, I can go on and on.
I can hear that, but not in a bad way, because I really love how you speak about your kids, or how you speak about being a wife. It's got this air of, I don't know if the word is gentleness, but or like careness, like you've got this level of this present aura that's sort of coming around, like, you know, like you're very present in being these two roles. Like, although you admit that it's difficult, but it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful how you communicate the love and the care and the affection. And, you know, I always say this on the show, and I'm sure people who are listening always get tired of me saying this, but I really love moms who are able to do this research thing and also be a mom and a wife, and, you know, because you wear so many hats, not to take anything away from the dads as well, but it is a different thing. And so I really commend and I look up to you, because I'm like, yo, it's a lot. And lot. Like you said already,
it's
a lot. Even though the way that you've explained it, like, you know, it's got its great wholesome moments, but it's also got its difficult moments, which we did say that we're going to speak about later on in the show. But yeah, I just wanted to say I commend you and I look up to you, and you're doing great. Like, it maybe doesn't feel like it all the time, but you are doing so great. So yeah,
I appreciate, you know, every time I hear you're doing great, it's sort of some affirmation for me, because we do so much as women, and we beat ourselves a lot because we feel like we're not doing enough, especially when you're working or doing research and you still come back, have to give this other people your whole self. So those little words of affirmation of you're just doing great, even though sometimes I'm not, but it keeps me going, you know. So I appreciate.
No, you're welcome. Like, one day I hope to be as great as every single person who I chat to and is able to do this. So for me, for my eyes, you are doing fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So let's then talk about before you were a mom and before you were, you know, in doing all the things that you do now. You mentioned that you grew up in Limpopo, right? So being a young girl in Limpopo, how does she find herself in the science? What is the story there?
Well, I think it starts with my grandmom. I'm my grandmom's, I'd say my grandmom's daughter. So I was raised by my grandmom. I was actually named after her, both names. Wow. Yeah. So I started staying with her when I was in grade 2. Luckily, the primary school that I was in, it's in a village at Arabkwe. So villages usually don't have that much props for education. But I don't know, lucky enough, we had this program called Read. So they brought books, a whole lot of storybooks that we would read, we would dramatize, we would do poetry, you know. So that, I think it was the first point where I really got interested in reading. But then the earliest memory that I have was in grade 7. Like, we used to do, I think it was natural science then. So we would read books. They would tell us like subject, I mean, is it subject or topics, I think. And then every time I would read the books, they would say, scientists found out, you know, scientists found this. And that excited me a lot, because I was thinking, that is actually me, you know. So I would turn around and actually I caused disturbance, but anyway. I would turn around and tell whoever's next to me, is like, that is me. Like, I felt this great excitement that somebody found something, and that exploration part of me just got ignited at that point. So I think, that's where the science part comes in. But then also, I think I should mention how my grandma played a huge role in education. My grandmom didn't do go to varsity, but I remember when I started staying with her, I couldn't even read. I was in grade 2. But every day after school, she would go through my books. We would write, I would rewrite everything that I learned. I remember at first, because I really loved playing, I would copy my cousin's work. And then the day she caught me was the day that I copied her name.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that's the day that I copied her name also. So then, yeah, she started separating us like, no, before you play, then you should repeat everything. And I think she instilled that thing of being careful with my work. So as we continued, she would always, if the test, she would want to see. And then she always told me that, you know what, education would take you out of the poverty, because she wasn't working, but she tried so much to provide, you know. So she instilled at me that for you to escape all this is to educate yourself, to work for yourself, and you could be at liberty. So continuing forward with high school, I knew that I did the sciences. There was once, I think in grade 9, before we chose streams, there was this one teacher that we did economics in. I remember the last test that confirmed to me that I'm not going to do accounting. I wrote the test until break and my pen broke, and I was like, no. No, I'm trying to balance these things. They won't balance.
It's not working.
It's not working. This is not for me. Like, no. Like, I was like, no, man. Like, this is the one that I was, because I was thinking, okay, maybe I can do account, but I was like, no. This is not me. So I continued forward with the sciences, and I'd really have to appreciate my high school teachers as well, because they were understaffed, but they did all they could to prop us for later on university. So yeah, I think also the stream that I chose, because I think I liked. As much as I wanted to be a scientist, I think at some point I considered being a doctor. Then, my grandma again was like, no, 6 years is too much. You're not going to do, because she asked me after matric, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, then I'll do, funny enough, okay, I had 2 first years. Hope I'm not alone. So I did 2 first years. The first one was at Wits. I did computer science and what did I call it? Computational maths and something, So, when you're coming with all your A's, you can choose everything that you wanted. So halfway through, then I realized that actually I'm not even passionate about this thing that I'm doing. A lot of computers, a lot of coding. And when I looked like outside the challenges that I was facing at that moment, I couldn't see myself doing anything outside that. So then, I moved the following year. Then I did biochem and chemistry. Moved to UJ. Actually, they kicked me out,
Oh, okay. Why?
I failed. And guess what? Guess what I passed?
Yeah.
The only module that I passed was chemistry.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it was very obvious.
It was obvious that I was just fooling myself, So, I think also, for people actually, even coming from villages, those that have just been in the same environment. So it becomes challenging the first year, and not just the educational part of it, the social part of it too. So there's just that struggle, and then you isolate yourself, which is like the most dangerous thing that you could do, because the most important thing that you could do in that situation is associate yourself with other people, because that's where you learn, that's where you get to be supported also, and then that's where you get to find your ground. So I think my advice also in this is that if you find yourself struggling as a first year student, anywhere in the universities, associate yourself. Like, if find someone, talk to someone. Doesn't have to be someone in your stream. Talk to someone, find someone, and find your community, and then that's where you will find your ground too. So
that's so true.
Yeah. So I think I've deviated a bit, but yeah.
No, that's so true. I quickly just wanted to touch on what you said about the importance of finding a common ground. But do you think maybe sometimes it's got to do with shame, that you feel ashamed that you are struggling so hard, and then maybe you kind of cocoon yourself, and then you end up struggling some more. So was that also maybe for you, maybe the reason why you didn't necessarily reach out immediately?
No, that's
could
true.
That be the reason?
It could be. Yeah, I think it was. It is true, because I think when you get to varsity, you meet people from different areas of life, So that mostly people who come from the villages, they are shunned upon, especially when people are twanging and you're coming with your own accent. You speak and people are like, okay, and they just continue. So shame really played a role in that. But I think my advice then would be to really be confident in where you come from, because nobody will take away your background, and nobody will change it, because that's where you come from. So I think being confident in who you are, knowing that as much as you come from there, it doesn't define you. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you don't deserve the best. So you also deserve to be where you are with all the other people that are there too, because you enrolled, and it doesn't have to be just university, because I find the same thing happens even in the workplace or in social events.
Of course.
In social events, they'll be like, you're dark enough, or you don't have a weave, or you're tall enough, but then the beauty is in being confident in who you are.
You said that after you finished, you are like, if I come back for MSc, I'm not, you don't want to be here. But in your intro, you said that you took some time before you came back for your MSc. What happened there?
Okay. So I was working as an internal sales coordinator at Shimadzu. So it's the company where they were selling like laboratory instruments. So I was like the first point where I was communicating with clients and technicians from inside. So then when I'm talking to clients, most people are within science. So it's like universities, it's companies, it's research facilities that are within the field. So if I happen to come across a new company that I've never heard of, then I would just Google, what do they do? Because I think when I finished my studies, there were like a few companies that are on top of my mind, because we deal with them. Like when you order chemicals, you know who to go to. The first is Sigma, So it's like one of those brands that are just there. I think there were just a few that we know, but I got to realize that there's actually thousands of other companies that cater to our fields that we don't actually know of, And then I got to like Google, what do they do? Okay, and then so there was just this one client that worked at the Agricultural Research Institute. Then I Googled what they do, their research group, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm interested in this, So the other thing was that I promised myself that when I came back, I realized that while I was working, that most people from research institutes, especially universities, masters, doctorates, and postdocs, when you talk to them, they're so narrow-minded.
Yeah.
Very educated people, but very narrow-minded, because they focus only on their project. It's like you use an HPLC. At the end of the day, you only know that it does only one thing, but then the technicalities behind it, because those are the skills that you get as a researcher. At the end of the day, you're a researcher, not just an MSc student, You're a researcher not just of your project, because your project is the basis of what you're doing, so that later on you can expand on that. But then it's not the only thing that you do. So I realized that there's this little shift or this little corner that people need to shift from. So I was like, I think also when you're too focused just in one university, you don't get to expand your mind. And I think reasonably so, because research is stressful, So I was like, you know what? I need to be associated with another institution so that I get to sometimes go out.
Yeah.
Not just, just to be drawn out of this little cocoon and then associate with other people that are not within the institution. So then the plan was, okay, find funding that's outside the university. So I found a supervisor that's at the ARC, and then the supervisor was like, "Oh no, if you are to go with us, then you have to find someone within a university where you're gonna go at." Then that's where I found my supervisor, who's Prof. Taramola, and he was then based at the University of Witwatersrand at Wits. So then I had to do research also on like what do they do. So I read on their papers. So I checked their publications, what they do, and then I came across Prof. Daramola because the supervisor at ARC didn't really channel me. He said, just find anyone within the university where you're going to be enrolled in to be your main supervisor. Then I went with the one at Wits because he was closer by, and they were collaborating at some point. So then I went with Prof. Daramola. And then, I registered, it was when? Back in 2019 at Wits. And then I got to move. And I think looking back at it is like, I always started Wits, but never finished there.
Seems to be a point.
It's my starting point. So then we moved later to the University of Pretoria mid-corona. My supervisor found a job that side, so he became the HOD. So that was another challenge because it's like skipping town. Pretoria and Joburg is two different environments. So then we all had to move. But I think from the starting point of view, perhaps maybe an advice for anyone who's looking to start, I think to really do their research first, if they've got the privilege to, because I know that some people they are kind of forced to do their MSc because they don't have a choice, they don't have a job at the moment. So if given the privilege to have the time to actually search, I think try to find more than one funding, and also one that is outside the university, because at least you can collaborate. Sometimes when there's no instrument within the university, you can find it outside. You can make a plan, so you're not confined to just one environment. And also they expand your mind, because you get to, if you're doing a progress report at your institution, then you can get to do it outside also, and then they give you a different perspective and a different approach, so you get to grow from that too. So I think and also if you've got two findings, because I think we really struggle as postgraduate. Because we don't have the funding, and I feel like somehow we should really be recognized, because I don't want to say we're doing the Lord's job, but we are contributing to the field. We are doing, even if we think it's minuscule, but it's a lot, because at the end of the day, you put your mindset to it, you bring you publish as well. So it's like we are working as researchers, and the finances should be put to place to cover that, because we stress about research, we stress about finances, and most of the people that are actually doing postgraduate are not young people. They are older. Like you find you find husbands and wives there, so it's grown up
need
people
money.
are doing research, but
Simple. I think we can be very honest about it. Like we must stop beating around the bush. Like people need money to survive, and in order for you to have a peace of mind to be effectively working, you need financial security. It's literally the basis of everything. You have food on your table, you have a home, you have transport. You're able to be very conducive, and we don't talk. Yeah, so it's necessary. And I love what you said about how we do need to be able to if you can, like, I like what you said about privilege, because sometimes some people just go in quickly with no blinker. I mean, with blinkers, very naively going with somebody, not knowing what they're getting themselves into, because you're so desperate for something, anything, because of the current job market in South Africa. It's very difficult, so studying has now become the alternative, and almost without really understanding why you are studying. And it gets when you don't know that, those things tend to come out during the course of your study. But I mean, I suppose it's part of the process. But you're absolutely right about how you need to, if you can, and you have able to research, and you're able to have that. It seems like you have this duality where you have the institution and also industry. So when you're finished, you're able to adapt into outside of the university setting really well. Moloko, I want us to talk about your actual MSc then. You are doing your MSc in chemical technology, and the aim of your project is to improve the bioproduction of a platform chemical called succinic. I hope I've said it correctly. Acid. Can you tell us more about this work, and why is it so important that you are doing it?
So my MSc in chemical technology is actually within the chemical engineering department. So basically, the aim of it was, so it's a progression from a previous study whereby they developed a one-pot system. So basically a one-pot system is that there is, I don't know if I should start with the concept of it so that I could elaborate more. So in bioproduction, we're using lignocellulosic material. Yes, that's biomass. Biomass is like plants. So we are taking plants and we're extracting sugars from them. So to extract sugars from them, we need chemicals. We call the process a pre-treatment process. Whereby I was using zinc tetrahydrate chemical. We call it a molten hydrate solution. So it is recyclable as compared to the previous, other chemicals, ionic chemicals that extract sugars from biomass. So after extracting the sugars, then you have to convert them to value-added chemicals. And in the conversion, we use microbes, right? So in the previous study, they placed cow dung within a pre-treated corn cob. And then they tested for the production of succinic acid. So the importance now of succinic acid is a platform chemical. So a platform chemical means that it can be a precursor to many other chemicals. So it can be a starting point, and then you can keep on converting it to another chemical. So it finds use in agriculture. There is use in food industry where it's used as a flavor. That it gives umami flavor. It's used in the petrochemical industry as well. It can be used in the pharmaceutical as an additive. Where else? But it finds use in many other industries. And it also forms bioplastics, which then addresses the pollution, because then if we use it to form plastics, then they are biodegradable. So that's the whole point of it. So then in my project was that, because in the previous one, they found that the microbes within cow dung, they produced succinic acid, but it was at a very low concentration.
Okay.
So then with my project then was to try to optimize that process. The first step was to isolate succinic acid producing bacteria within the cow dung. Sorry about that. So then I had to now selectively isolate those. So I used bromocrystal green. So it's a pH indicator. So I grew the bacteria from cow dung on an agar plate. And then those that changed the color, which is green, of the bromocrystal green to yellow, meaning that there was an organic acid production. Then I chose those colonies and then further isolated them into newer agar plates. And then from there, I grew them into a liquid broth. Sorry. And then I quantified the organic acids using HPLC. So then also the succinic acid is being produced, like the microbes have different metabolic pathways.
Okay.
So there is the anaerobic pathway, then there is the aerobic pathway. Then I aimed for the anaerobic pathway because succinic acid is being produced as a byproduct. So in the aerobic pathway, it's an intermediate. And this means that succinic acid now gets produced, but then it gets converted to another product. So I cannot get to quantify it at the end of the day. I cannot have it as a product through that pathway. So yeah, then that was the first objective. Then going forward, because now I isolated it successfully, then was to adapt it into the pre-treatment solution. Remember that initially I said that the bioprocessing reactor was holder one pot, whereby pre-treatment and bioconversion happens in the one system. And then we know that bacteria are living organisms and they've got their own preferences, like just like us. Like when it's hot, we complain. When it's too cold, we complain. But we want, mild conditions. If maybe the food is cold, we complain. Or if sometimes you don't want hot food, you want cold food, or you don't want like chili, So microbes are also like that. They've got their own preferred conditions which they prefer, like pH to start with. There are those that thrive in acidic conditions, and then there are those that thrive in alkaline conditions. There are those that thrive at very high temperatures, and then there are those that struggle, to live at high temperatures. So then I tried to, so the pretreatment conditions were like at 70 degrees and then 5% of the MHS pretreatment solution. So then I tried to adapt the succinic acid, the one that was producing the most succinic acid at those conditions, so that I can optimize the conditions. So I made sure that, so the adaptation also was through mutation. So we know that, mutation happens all the time, especially with, antibiotic resistance. So, and with antibiotic resistance, then we know that it's through exposure to the antibiotics, like to a point, and then there's those that survive. And then now you expose them to another concentration of, especially those that don't finish their prescriptions, they get exposed to a certain concentration, and there's those that survive also. So that was the approach. They call it the evolutionary engineering. Let's call it evolutionary adaptation. Yes. So that was the approach of the adaptation. So I think, that's the gist of my project. So it's a combination of microbiology, biotechnology, chemistry, chemical engineering. So I think I get to apply myself actually in this field.
Wow, that is amazing. Like, who would even know? I think it's such fascinating research that you are doing, and I think I like what you said, that you're able to apply all these different disciplines into your project, and yeah, and again, I think it makes you very versatile going forward in terms of wherever else you land up in the near future. I wish you all of the best with the
Thank
rest of the
you.
research. It really sounds really exciting and, very important. As we're starting to wrap up, I just want us to touch on the fact that we spoke about how, the journey was not always straight. You mentioned that where you failed, where you had to change and move, and all of the ups and downs that comes with being doing a postgraduate journey. And with there's that image that always goes around, like how you think it's straight, but meanwhile it's all of these squiggles that come around. So looking back, you said that for you, and also you mentioned that you had your son during COVID while you were studying, right? So you've mentioned that for you, how you managed to navigate, you bring emphasis on the importance of community as a sense of support for you. So can you just tell us more on that, and why you believe in community so much?
Okay. I think I'd first start with the challenges that I faced throughout. I think the first was moving mid my research. I had to move towns to Pretoria, like literally find accommodation that side. And also it was when we moved, that was 2020, and that was the middle of Corona. So I think first then because I was coming from like the sciences background, then I had to move into the engineering. That was like another challenge too, because I had to acquaint myself with majority of the concepts thereof. So I think 2019 was just adapting and finding my ground, and finding my ground with especially with the research, especially that it was a progression from another one. So I had to acquaint myself with everything that was done, so that I can be able to see the gap where I'd have to come in and really understand it. So yeah, that's the first one. So throughout the year, then I was doing my proposal, doing the literature reviews. Then just when I was about to dig in and get into the lab, then we had to move. Then having to move also, they did mean that getting to know new people, new lab managers, acquainting myself with the new lab as well. But I think, having the approach of a child, like saying that I don't know and please teach me, that really helped, because then people could extend their hands and their help throughout to like wherever that, with whatever that I wanted throughout. And with the lab managers at the UP, like South Campus, that was really helpful. So yeah, and then there was that. Again, we had to wear masks throughout. That was difficult. Then the other party I was finding out when I was pregnant, just after moving. I think the first one was judgment from the community. I felt like I was doing teenage pregnancy, guys.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Old as I am, I felt like that was teenage, but I'm like older than a teenager. But then it's now having to, because now like there's bodily changes, like the energy that I used to have is no longer there. Getting tired, getting sleepy, having moods as well. And then, it's not like everybody knew that I was pregnant then. So new environment. Now I'm experiencing all these changes by myself, and I have to be fast because now time was moving, So that was another challenge. And I think yeah, one thing that I'd have to say is that I think, I mean, not just in the research institute, I think it happens in work also. I mean, natural thing as falling pregnant, especially for us women, it becomes taboo. Like, it's like people look at you like, how did you get pregnant? Why would you get pregnant? Like, it's like something so natural that should be appreciated, but becomes something so, I don't know. It's like people judge you for falling pregnant, like you're not supposed to fall pregnant, like, So, and I think people should actually change their minds, because it's like going to the toilet. You can't hold it in. It's supposed to happen. So people should have a different view of it also, that it should be like people should make it a king. What should I say? It's like it should be accepted because it's natural. We shouldn't feel alienated as women within institutions because something natural happened, because then people would look at you like, why would you do such a thing? So that was the first thing. And getting to juggle, because you're no longer performing at the same rate as before, and getting to judge yourself, getting to be harsh on yourself, because then there's differences. Other people are moving faster than you because you're not moving at the same rate. So those are some of the challenges that I really went through. And I think mostly, like I was saying, that pregnancy is natural. It's like falling sick. It just happens. You don't plan to do that. But even if you planned it, but it shouldn't be an alien thing where people look at you as if you've done something taboo. Like It should be accepted at all levels of, of superiority. So, I think, that's that.
So then how were you supported? How were you supported in the journey? Do you have the correct support with the things that were going on?
Okay, yes, I did. Fortunately, my supervisor was very understanding. And he was helping me throughout. It's like, no, be careful, especially that I was working with microbes and they could be detrimental to the growing fetus. So, and my lab mates also, there's like the water bottles that were heavy. They would help me throughout. If maybe, there was like fumes, they would make sure that I'm not in the lab at those moments, because then inhaling them would be detrimental to the fetus as well. So I think I'd really have to appreciate them like throughout, because I remember like my housemate, we did actually the same project. So sometimes she would transport me to campus. If she still wasn't going to campus, she would make sure that I'm on campus and make sure that I come back early on time, because, I was in Pretoria and my other friends were not there. So the lab mates were really, really understanding, and they would provide a hand throughout. And apart from that, my family too. They checked up on me all the time. My husband now, like he would make sure that I travel safely, especially like it was Corona times and anything could happen at those moments, because we were just unsure of the future, like what was happening. So making sure that I was safe at those moments, because so I think like community was really important, especially with the mental health at some point, because there's a lot that happens and you are isolated. Like everyone is doing their things in their own environment. So keeping in check. I actually had counseling too at the university, because things really got really hard. So I reached out to the counseling institution, the counselors at the institution, and I had to talk through like all the things that were happening, and I found my ground through that too.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad that you were supported in all the various aspects of your life, Moloko. And as you took on your various challenges, it's been so interesting hearing you speak about your journeys and just sharing about your research and also everything else that you learned along the way. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Anne.
And to everybody else who's tuned in, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.